Welcome to this explainer by Forge College. Today we're taking all that awesome stuff you learned in our last lesson on ensuring secure value transfer, and we're officially drafting your final engineering blueprint. We're doing all this before you write a single line of code. Think of it like getting your architectural diagrams perfectly sketched out before pouring an ounce of concrete. Because honestly, in the world of Bitcoin, building a transaction blindly, it's kind of like trying to build a skyscraper without a tape measure. It's going to get expensive fast and it might just collapse on you. So we're going to make sure that absolutely doesn't happen.
All right, let's take a quick look at our agenda. We'll be moving from abstract mental models all the way to a simulated stress test. We're going to hit the fee priority stack, move into the pre-construction workflow, do a quick trade-off analysis, run through a real-world scenario, and finally, lock in your final blueprint. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The fee priority stack. 3 layers of transaction prep. So imagine your transaction prep as this 3-tiered scaffold. Every single decision you make at the absolute bottom feeds right into the layer above it, and that ultimately determines how quickly, and honestly, how safely, your value moves across the network. If your foundation is cracked, well, the whole structure is compromised. Your transaction is either going to get stuck in digital purgatory for days, or you're going to end up wildly overpaying in fees just to get a miner's attention. We literally need to engineer this perfectly from the ground up so that every piece of data serves a deliberate, cost-effective purpose.
Down at the foundation, we have the UTXO layer. These are the concrete digital assets you actually control, defined by their virtual size, their script types, and their privacy characteristics. It's exactly like packing a suitcase for a flight, right? You have to carefully pick what goes in so you don't waste precious space on the block space highway. And hey, remember from our last lesson? How you pack that suitcase directly impacts your privacy. You wouldn't pack your most embarrassing hole-ridden socks right on top of your fancy suit, would you? Obviously not. Similarly, you really don't want to mix highly identifiable KYC-linked UTXOs with your private ones. You're selecting the exact physical footprint of your transaction right here.
Okay, once our bag is packed, we move up to the fee pricing layer. This is where we translate that physical footprint, your UTXO size, into a hard numeric cost. We calculate this by multiplying the estimated vbytes, which is basically the exact dimensional size of your packed suitcase, by your target SAT per vbyte rate. It's like dragging your heavy bag up to the airline counter, heaving it onto the scale, and waiting to see exactly how much they're going to charge you to put it on the plane. Except, in Bitcoin, you actually have the power to negotiate that rate, depending on how fast you want to fly. Pretty cool, right? Then, at the very top, we've got the miner incentive layer. This is the behavioral layer. It acts as the ultimate filter, deciding if your transaction is actually attractive enough to make it into the next block. Miners rank your transaction based on the total fee, any replaced by fee signals, and package fees. Think of it as the VIP bouncer at a club, looking at your ticket price and deciding if you get to skip the velvet rope or if you're stuck waiting outside in the cold all night. And trust me, you want to know how to tip that bouncer. Miners are economically rational actors. They don't care about your transaction, they only care about the math. So we've got to make our math highly appealing. Section 2. Pre-construction workflow. The decision pipeline.
Now, the real magic happens when we convert that abstract mental stack into a highly structured, actionable workflow. We've condensed this prep into 4 logical phases. First, define goals and select UTXOs. Second, estimate size and vbytes. Third, map fees and check hygiene. And fourth, prepare a contingency plan. This creates a deterministic, ironclad checklist that prevents some seriously costly surprises when you go to broadcast. It's like a pre-flight checklist for a commercial pilot. You wouldn't just turn the key, take off, cross your fingers, and hope you packed enough fuel to cross the ocean. You calculate it meticulously first. In Bitcoin engineering, skipping this pipeline is literally the fastest way to leak sats and compromise your wallet's operational security.
Section 3. Trade-off analysis. Decisions and implications.
Just like any engineering project, every single design choice in Bitcoin comes with strict trade-offs. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. For instance, picking native SegWit will beautifully shrink your per-input size and radically reduce your fees. But you have to ensure your counterparty actually supports receiving to that address type. Enabling RBF, replaced by fee, gives you this fantastic emergency escalation path if fees suddenly spike, but it explicitly signals to the network that the transaction might be replaced, which some merchants really don't like for zero confirmation payments. Now, relying heavily on a CPFP, or child pays for parent strategy, lets you defer fee escalation, but it bloats your chain linkage and overall transaction complexity. What about consolidating inputs? Sure, it might save you massive headaches and future fees down the road, but you gotta pay the toll today and you permanently link your UTXOs together on the public ledger. You really have to weigh these options and pick your poison carefully before you execute.
Section 4. A real-world scenario. Running the stress test.
Enough theory. Let's take our blueprint off the drafting table and run it through a real-world scenario. Imagine you need to send exactly 0.45 Bitcoin to a counterparty. You want confirmation within 6 blocks, and you're on a strict budget of exactly 60,000 sats, no more. You open your wallet and see 3 UTXOs sitting there, a 0.3, a 0.15, and a tiny 0.08 Bitcoin UTXO. But here's the massive catch. Your golden privacy rule for this wallet is to avoid linking that small 0.08 UTXO to the others unless it's a life or death emergency. So we're dealing with a puzzle that has real financial and privacy consequences. We immediately face an engineer's dilemma. Do we reduce our send amount slightly to cover the fee out of just 2 inputs, or do we sacrifice our hard-earned privacy by adding a 3rd input just to generate change? Option A gives us exactly 0.45 Bitcoin with the first 2 UTXOs, but leaves absolutely 0 room for minor fees unless we negotiate the send amount down with the receiver. Option B covers the fees beautifully by tapping into the 3rd UTXO, but completely exposes that small 0.08 balance to the public ledger forever while also inflating our byte size. So what's the optimal path here? Let's say we choose the leaner 2-input approach. Why? Well, because we highly value our privacy. Let's assume we called our counterparty and successfully negotiated a slightly smaller send amount to account for the miner's fee. We compute our virtual size using those 2 inputs and our single output, and crunching the numbers, it comes out to roughly 270 vbytes. Boom! We've kept our footprint incredibly small and preserved our UTXO hygiene. Now we check our mempool estimator for that desired 6-block target. The network tells us a competitive rate right now is 40 sats per vbyte. Multiplying our 270 vbyte size by that 40 sat rate gives us a total absolute fee of 10,800 sats. Look at that. It's beautifully, perfectly under our 60,000 sat budget. By doing the math beforehand and optimizing our inputs, we've successfully and safely navigated the fee pricing layer without breaking a single sweat.
But wait, as any veteran will tell you, the mempool is a highly volatile, completely unpredictable highway. What happens if congestion suddenly spikes 5 minutes after you hit send, block times slow down, and the miners just ignore you? What if we get stuck in digital gridlock with our crucial payment hanging in limbo?
This is exactly where our contingency plan kicks in. You must document your contingency before you build. You have to decide in advance whether you'll escalate using strategy A, RBF, essentially bumping up the fee on the existing transaction from your own wallet, or push it through later with strategy B, CPFP, where the receiver pays a higher fee on the child transaction to pull the parent through. You map this out up to your maximum paying threshold, let's say 55 sats per vbyte. Trust me, you never ever want to be making these complex economic decisions in a blind panic while your transaction is hanging unconfirmed for 3 days. You plan the emergency exit before the building catches fire.
Section 5. Your final blueprint. Key takeaways for transaction construction.
So the crucial point here is that this exact workflow is what separates amateur guesswork from professional Bitcoin engineering. Let's slowly recap the core rules for your final blueprint. First, always compute before you build. Seriously, never guess. Estimate your vbytes and absolute fees mathematically before constructing the transaction. Second, make your backups explicit by recording your maximum escalation fees for either RBF or CPFP. Know your budget ceiling. And third, never forget that aligning privacy and economics is absolutely vital. Throwing dirty UTXO dust in with clean UTXOs just to save a few sats today will end up costing you both your privacy and your money down the line. Keep your workspace and your wallet impeccably clean. With your blueprint fully sketched out, you are now thoroughly prepared. I highly encourage you to visit forge.college to continue your Web3 learning journey and explore more amazing resources. But before you move on to the next capstone, ask yourself, with your fee priority stack understood, your privacy protected, and your contingencies planned, are you finally ready to build a raw transaction? Or will you let the mempool dictate your wealth? The tools are in your hands.